Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at something that's sort of flying but not really flying, and that's using the AI assistant to help us out. Now the AI assistant is a really useful tool if you need somebody to hold the wheel for you and you don't want to use the automatic pilot for it. It does have a few quirks, and of course because of the way it's designed, there are some things that are built in that people who've been flying a long time are like, ah, but we'll take a look at each one of those in turn. So to bring up the menu, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mouse, come up to where this little arrow is, and you can see you have this thing that says Flight Assistant. When you press the Flight Assistant, you're going to see a bunch of different items. The first thing you're going to notice is there's this piece that says Cancel Destination. The reason this is an interesting little piece here is because this is going to allow you to cancel where you're going. Now, before I loaded this scenario in, what I actually did is I set Bradley as my destination. We're here in Danbury, by the way, in case you're curious, noticing the distance here. Now, the reason this is important is because if you're doing any of the automatic flying down here, you want to make sure that you set yourself up in such a way that you want to do that. By the way, this is a really cool thing. This is teleport to increased altitude. Really fun to play with, but we'll deal with that in a minute. So the first one at the tippy top here is going to be display direction. When you press display direction, it creates a dot to tell you where you need to go. Now, this is one of those silly things that people are like, why didn't I use this since the beginning of the game? That's wonderful. It literally tells me where I need to go. Yeah, it actually is pretty helpful. The next one you're going to see is this thing called taxi ribbon. We're not going to have the taxi ribbon visible because we're not on a taxiway. So what I'm going to do is do some quick ground handling there. There we are. Beautiful. So now if I were to turn on the taxi ribbon and then request taxi to my actual active runway, notice we've already been cleared here. It'll actually draw a little line on the ground. That'll show us where that is. So let's go ahead and pretend we've done all our lovely taxiing work here. I actually like the taxi ribbon. It saves a lot of frustration. Next one is our landing ribbon. This will not be visible. The reason we're not going to see it is because we're not landing. When we get over to Bradley International, I'll go ahead and show you exactly what that looks like. So now we get to the more interesting options. These are the AI options. There's a bunch of different methods that you have in here. Personally, one of my favorite here is the radio communications here. They'll actually do most of the talking for you, including getting clearances, asking for land. They'll do all that work for you. And just by clicking it right now, if I were to go ahead and take off, which I'll go ahead and do now, they will actually run the radio for me. So let's go ahead and give it a little bit of power here and us get running down the runway. Again, when it comes to which one of these options do you usually use, the auto trim is fun, but we'll get to auto trim in a minute here. Let's see, we'll get ourselves some little bit of speed. It's very tempting to press teleport to increased altitude button. I'm so tempted. We won't. Man, you can tell we have flaps. 172s don't take off like that without flaps. And it's why are you on the runway, sir? Sir. Dude. That's dangerous. I hope that guy gets a bit of a stern talking to kind of thing like that. All right, so now that we got a little bit of peace here, and let's go kind of continue our cruise. Notice, by the way, we've been cleared for takeoff. The automatic communications is going to kick in a minute and kind of do some of the work for us. Kind of come swing around here. We'll fly kind of conventionally. Enjoying it. We're going to get ourselves a little tiny bit of altitude before we start fitzing with the other flight assistant options here.
Continue for west departure.
I actually like the landing ribbon, especially if you're in IFR conditions. It's like cheating. You'll see it in a minute. All right, and there we go. We'll go ahead and line ourselves up. Perfect. I like that. I like that a lot, actually. Let's go ahead and give it a couple taps of trim here. Again, we'll do the automatic trim in a moment. That looks pretty good. And perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and teleport to increased altitude. You can see that's giving me a little bit of altitude here. Give me about 1,000. If I do that again, you can see we're now at 9,000 feet. So that's a pretty cool altitude for us. It's probably a bit too much, actually. So I'm actually going to use some quick slew here. We're going to come back down to a normal human being altitude here. Well, I mean, you could fly at 172 that high. I just think it would be a little bit silly. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our other options that we have as well. By the way, the air traffic communications, you can see they already set up our squawk and flight following and everything for us. Man, I love that button. It's like flying with a co-pilot kind of thing like that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go get the plane all kind of ready for our little cruise here. Back the power up just a tiny bit. And then we're going to go ahead and play with the next item, which is going to be the auto trim. So I'm going to go ahead and click that real quick. So what auto trim does is it attempts to maintain the trim at the pitch that you've set it. It's kind of like a fly-by-wire setting. So if I actually look down here, do you see how that trim wheel is happily crunching away? I'm not touching the trim wheel, by the way. I'm actually not touching the yoke. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and level the plane right here, get us as close to 0 feet per minute as I can get it. I'm going to let go. So at this point now, the automatic trim is actually running itself. So, of course, as you probably observed, it is not holding our nose perfect here. Welcome to the brand new turbulence that we have. So I'm just going to kind of hang on to it for half a second here and just kind of let it do its thing. Again, let the plane sort of balance itself out. We've got to speed up and slow down here. Perfect. So now we basically got fly-by-wire in a 172, which is, it's okay. It's not, honestly, I think I'm a little bit quicker than the auto trim here, but that's part of the fun. Of course, at any point too, if we needed to, we could always hit the manual trim as well. Personally, I find this option to be more helpful like in a high-speed military aircraft, kind of less viable if you're kind of just flying a little plane like this. It's just so much easier to do it yourself, kind of thing like that. The next option we have is super fun. This is the anti-stall protection. I don't know how I feel about the AI anti-stall protection. Let me show you why. So let's go ahead and pull the throttle out. Now, we haven't done this in ages. Slow down a little bit. Slow down a little bit. And we're just going to enjoy this gentle reduction in speed. Yeah, that's nice. I like that right there. Oh, yeah, there it is. Now, the fun thing with the 172 is like the yoke rather, gets so loose when you slow down. Let's go pop the flaps all the way down and get ourselves in a nice approach stall situation. Hold that nose up. Hold that nose up. Now watch what happens when the auto stall kicks in. We're going to get the warning in a second. Did you see it? I did not do that. Did you see how it automatic? Hear the engine? Yeah, so all of that was done completely automatically. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate that again. So again, what I'll do is let me turn the yoke on so you can see it a little bit better. It automatically kicks in the power and it automatically jams it forward. So we're going to try to break the stall protection by doing a really, 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 really aggressive snap here and see what happens. See what happens. Nope, it won't let me do it. You're no fun. But you can see the AI stall protection does a really, really nice job of kicking in and preventing that from happening. So let's go ahead and pop that off. And of course, we have the next two here. The next one's going to be AI piloting. So let's actually get ourselves back on course here. Now, the AI piloting is actually kind of a neat tool because as long as it knows where it's going, it usually does a decent job of getting you there. One of the reasons I actually kind of like it is if you're flying a really, really old plane that doesn't have automatic pilot, like the Wright Flyer. Again, I don't know why you're flying that one, but hey, everybody's got their favorite plane. I can now hit this switch, and what the plane will now do is it'll actually take the controls from me, and it'll attempt to fly the flight based on what I have designed it to do. Now, what's super fun about this now is the aircraft is completely under the control of the pilot here, or the automatic pilot here. It's going to try to go back to my original GPS course that we had a few moments ago. It's going to try to maintain the appropriate altitudes and everything like that, and it's actually going to do all the fun part of flying for us, which is, kind of a shame. One thing you'll notice, though, is the autopilot, it does not communicate well with you. When you put like the normal autopilot on, you can dial exactly kind of what you want it to do, sort of what you don't want it to do, things like that. Whereas this AI pilot, I always like to kind of joke that sometimes it sort of has a mind of its own as far as what it thinks is where you're trying to go, what it thinks you need to do to get to your particular destinations. All those components, as you'll see, are kind of going to have this sort of pieces to it as you're navigating. Like for right now, we're supposed to be going up to Bradley, but you can clearly see how we're returning back to Danbury here. So what I'm going to do now is I'll go ahead and fast forward to our destination. Oh, well, by the way, while we're on our way to our destination, right off there in the distance, some of you are probably curious what AI piloting in cursor mode means. This simply is for those folks who are on Xbox controllers or you're using a controller that's single. You notice right now my mouse is actually in a cursor mode. So if I actually hit space real quickly here, the AI would actually take the controls from me and be very, very cruel with them. Now, the reason that's important is because if I were in like an Xbox controller and I had a single axis, you can see that little arrow right there that just appeared, that would now mean that while we're doing that, the AI could fly it so you could concentrate on other aspects of it. And now we shall show you what it looks like when you are in the landing ribbon. So if you look right now, you see these gigantic boxes that says too fast, too fast, too fast. And if you look out the window, you'll actually see that these little boxes will guide us all the way down to the ground. These guys here are called your landing ribbon. Now, the neat thing about the landing ribbon is if you haven't played with it before, you'll probably get a combination of what and a combination of, hey, that's pretty cool. It's sort of a good mix between the two. For example, you get a nice little scenario here where your brain is going, what orientation is, what? Kind of taking a look here, just trying to let your brain sort of figure out exactly what we mean by this. This says that I'm going too fast, and you can see once I hit that 65 knots, it is certainly happy. If you look over there on the right, see where it says landing speed 58 to 52. By the way, if you're flying a real 172, 60 is the magic number generally. 58 to 52 is, I'm not going to call it sketchy, I'm just going to call it probably a little slow. And again, on 172, see how it yells at you for too slow now? And again, all those little guidance warnings are now built in as you're making your final approach here. Let's go ahead and I just did some time acceleration there so you can kind of see what would happen. So we'll come swing around and you'll see that there's guidance here. One of the neat things is it actually exists in clouds as well. You'll actually see it in situations where, you're trying to do like an instrument approach, and now you have a tool that literally will tell you how to get yourself down to the ground safely. Now, of course, you're sitting here going, hey, does the automatic AI pilot actually do this? Well, let me show you what happens there. Turn on the AI pilot, and what you'll probably observe is he immediately accelerates and ignores everything that we were just doing a second ago. So the AI pilots, while they're very, very capable of just kind of holding the wheel is sort of what I like to say, you're probably better off doing all your approaches yourself here. What I find very interesting is it selected this runway for this landing. And again, that's a good flight simism there. Let's go ahead and turn on our taxi ribbon. By the way, we still have air traffic communications controlled, and incredibly, if you actually look, they did all the different talks. And again, we noticed we have the go around option in there. So I'm just going to kind of line myself up. And of course, in my opinion, the important part of the landing here, they've neglected, which is kind of this last little part. But you can see with the 4 reds there, we are super duper low, but of course we're a Cessna 172. So I think it's okay if we come in a little slow here. This will also be a great opportunity to see the taxi ribbons. What is with it with the crosswind? Folks, runway 24. The correct runway was runway 24. Why did you not put us on runway 24? Of course, they didn't put us on runway 24 because this would have been a closer runway for us. Ah, that was nice. On the center line, too.
Red 64 exit runway when able.
Nice. Now, if you look ahead, you'll actually see that little blue line that's on the ground. That's going to be your handy-dandy little ribbons there. The reason that's handy is you'll actually see here is as I take off on the side, they're actually going to say contact ground on 121.9 and everything. They're going to do the ground handoff. And those little blue arrows will actually update themselves so that we can actually go ahead and see what we need to do to get to our particular ground. Go ahead and stomp the brakes real quickly here. Time to the ground, and of course we can request it. We can go to the gates, we can go to parking. And the key thing here is we have to make the request where we would like to go for it to be able to generate exactly what we need to do to get there. And you can already see the little blue lines over there on the right. They gave us all the instructions, and look at that. It automatically updated those lovely little blue lines in the ground. They are chevrons that'll guide us directly to where we need to go. Now, one of the fun things about the way this guides is, let me show you, is you will observe when we actually arrive at a particular component here, it actually has a box. And the neat thing about the little box here, let me go ahead and zoom up, is it'll actually orient you properly to the particular parking spot, like my mom would always say, parking spot, that you actually can go ahead and utilize here. And one of the reasons I actually kind of like this is it makes it very, he's back, he's back. It goes ahead and gives us the opportunity to see exactly what we need to line ourselves up. Like, I mean, I can see the marshal pretty clear here. He's telling me to go left. All right, he says come forward, come forward, come forward. Oop, left. Come forward, and brakes. Woo! And you can see now we're in our parking spot. So as you can see, those little assists they're interesting. They're interesting. Like I said, I almost 99.9% of the time fly with them off, but they are absolutely great ways to kind of give you that extra little bit of helping hand, especially if you're in an unknown environment. Enjoy.